talk about the Green Bay Packers, and they are in a very exciting position to potentially be on the verge of making a playoff push, Nick. And this has really got me looking into the Packers and just kind of breaking down all of the stuff. And we have some key injury news updates for the Packers that I think are going to be big in these next two divisional matchups, Nick. Tough games coming up down the stretch. And the first one is against the Vikings. And that's why we got to ask the Packers fans before we get into our story, what do you think the score of this Packers-Vikings game is going to be? Nick, I think I've heard a little snippet here. The Vikings have been playing inside since November 13th. So this is going to be a big change of pace for them. There could be, it could tip the scales towards the Packers a little bit. But I got to know from the from the Packers fans, what do you think the score of the Packers-Vikings game is going to be? Let us know. But Nick, what do you got on the Packers injury update?
Yeah, so the Packers have been battling injuries all season. It's no doubt, especially at the wide receiver position, but they've got good news on that front. So after the game Sunday, Christian Watson, there were some concerns about his hip injury. This is according to Ryan Wood. I tweeted this after the game. Said, caught up with Christian Watson as he was leaving the locker room. He told me his hip was okay. I'll be all right. But this is the big news right here. So this is according to Rob Demovsky, reporting to what Matt LaFleur said later about Christian Watson's injury. Demovsky said, sounds Christian Watson, Josh Nijman, and Kaizen Nixon all avoided significant injuries. Coach Matt LaFleur said they will be, quote, day-to-day this week. That means, obviously, down the stretch, you're looking for a playoff push. He is most likely to play. It would only be if there's some major setback for the Packers, which is huge for Green Bay going forward because Christian Watson, especially the second half of the season, has emerged as the most dynamic playmaker in this Packers offense. Like, I thought he was going to be kind of a slant, dig, hitch route kind of guy, do a lot of the dirty work. I thought Romeo Doubs was going to be the big play guy. It's been the other way around. Watson has been a dynamic big play force, and getting him back in time for this game against the Minnesota Vikings outside in the frozen tundra will be absolutely huge. What are your thoughts on Christian Watson, this injury, and just the momentum right now behind Green Bay?
I think it's crazy good because there's one thing that Watson has already established that Dobbs never was really able to get quite as much. And I think he has the trust of Aaron Rodgers this early into his young career. It seems like they have started to build a connection. It reminds me of a Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb-esque connection where Rodgers seeks out Watson during the games. He's always keeping his eye on him. It's kind of hard to play with Rodgers because he goes off script a lot, especially when you see, and I love this, he's one of my favorite players for doing these type of things. When you get like a false start or something like that and he has a free play, and he always has guys go out down the field, see if they could take a big shot. That's the kind of guy that you need, is a guy like Christian Watson who can break open a defense, go over the top with that speed, and make these big-time catches. And I think this is really important just because of the trust that is being built between Watson and Rodgers. I think this is going to be a very good matchup, and one of the reasons why Rodgers will stick around for the next few seasons to see if they can make this playoff push. But Nick, I don't even think that's the biggest news potentially for the Packers on the injury front. What else do you have?
Yeah, so this is left tackle David Bakhtiari. So Aaron Rodgers did his weekly bit on the Pat McAfee show. And here's an interesting quote. I'm just going to read this from you. This is from Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. Quote, I feel confident in saying that David Bakhtiari is trending towards playing this weekend. This weekend, of course, against the Minnesota Vikings. That would be absolutely huge because this Vikings defense is susceptible. But the one thing they can do at times is rush the passer and kind of use their front four and do some aggressive blitz packages to get after the quarterback or stop the run game. The Packers need to be as healthy as possible to handle that. And Bakhtiari is an absolute stud. If he plays along with Watson, I like the Packers a lot in this matchup because everyone knows every game the Vikings play comes down to the wire. If you've got your left tackle healthy and playing, if you've got your number one wide receiver, as he's emerged as, Christian Watson, healthy and playing, I love that matchup, and I love Aaron Rodgers over Kirk Cousins, especially in Lambeau Field. If Bakhtiari can play, I love the Packers to beat the Vikings.
Yeah, Nick, and I think this goes back to what we were saying about Watson, is the thing that a quarterback like Rodgers needs the most is trust in the guys around him, whether that is the receivers, whether that's his running backs, or whether that's his offensive line. And a guy that he's played with, a guy that is friends with, David Bakhtiari, I think that gives him a level of trust. Although I'd say Zach Tom has played admirably in his stead, I think they bump Tom somewhere else to the line. I think he's too good compared to some of the other guys they have. to not be able to play. But if Bakhtiari comes back, I think this is going to be huge for the Packers, and I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to feel a lot more comfortable with his, stalwart left tackle back into the game.